Today we'll finish up my 120 printing series from Copenhagen and let's go to the darkroom.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I am not a raincoat here to keep you warm. Let me go back in the closet after the storm. I'm not a match simply waiting to burn. All I am is a friend, your friend till the end.
From this strip I have not a lot of good frames on medium format, but a lot of good frames on the 35mm film. And I want to make few last frames from this strip. So let's clean up the frame, remove all the dust, and load the film carrier inside the photo head. Since I have experience with a lot of dust on my negatives on my macro photography setup, I decided in future to keep my negatives more clean and clean the setup before enlargement and scanning. So let's select the proper magnification on my 80mm lens, and also this frame I will print with the negative borders. With the focus finder, let's check the sharpness. This negative was exposed with a 2.8 on the Carl Zeiss 80mm lens, and as you can see I have plenty of sharpness and a lot of details. My next step is the calibration, and in future I want to make more experiments with the calibration to save more time and just explain more how it works for you, my viewers. But for now, let's find the optimal positions for 3 channels, check the temperature on the chemicals, and make a first test exposure. For paper development, I'm using Tetanal Professional Kit, and I have in mind idea to use the fresh solution for the final print and probably use reusable solutions for the tests. In this case you will get probably more depth in shadows and more color vibrance. I also find few options how to increase the contrast and the vibrance on top of the paper, and in general with the color couplers with the C41 process and Array 4 process. And here in this point I see I get a strange weird result with a foolish shift in the magenta channel. So it means I have some kind of error with my calibrations or with the measurements. And also here you can see I have not enough depth in blacks, so maybe it's a problem with the development. Anyway, let's write down the settings and put all my notes, what I have in mind, and I will try to recalibrate again with the removed filter. In my enlarger I have a special filter on the backside, which put something like 50-50 on magenta and yellow channel, if you have not enough correction volume. I think for modern color paper, which is optimized for the laser systems, it is a good idea to actually switch the light source for the cold LED light source, or use less powerful lamp, or just use a dimmable lamp. So on this test print I have a better colors, it's still shifted in the magenta, but at least I have a good blacks, and I can step up from this exposure and make a correction. So I actually increase by 15 seconds both color development and a bleach fix, so probably at some point my bleach fix get in a color developer bottle and just remove some of the sensitivity of the chemicals. And a clear difference here with the symmetry, because before it was 78 to 55 and now it's 58 to 62 in a yellow and magenta channel. So because I like this correction, I will put it in my timer, and probably in future I will remove it back to 45 seconds to use the general settings for my fresh chemistry. In my previous tests I found that the overdevelopment is not really critical, but underdevelopment it's crazy critical. So let's make a test print with the increasing of the filter position on the magenta channel and check if they have a good results and found the proper setting. I run up the same development step with a 1 minute of color development and 1 minute of bleach fix. And we can see here my corrections already on a wet paper looks good, so let's quickly dry it and choose the proper value for our next correction. On this photo the colors actually a little bit weird, and in comparison to the scans we cannot distinguish shadows, middles and highlights with the corrections. So let's select the proper position on the magenta channel and make a bigger print to decide if we want to do anything more with the different channels. And from this print I expect to be close enough and at least be neutral to the colors. So it's actually something wrong with my chemicals. Probably I just need to remake them again. So on this print I already can see some deviations from the norm. It means it have a little bit of fade as a film photo and not really good depth and blacks. So we correct not fully the bricks, they still a little bit of magenta tint, but problem with this, it's actually shadows and probably it's still there, these colors actually exist in a negative. So for my taste, this picture a little bit cold and I don't really like the cold pictures, and it's always good idea to make a little bit of warm, and it's usually shadow up all of the inconvenience and shadows, for example like magenta tint, and it will look more like a faded picture with a good greenish blacks and a yellow feeling. And make a more attenuation to the greens because it's a lot of flowers in this picture. Unfortunately in this composition I don't really have any light sources, so probably it looks not the perfect way as I want to see it. But let's make final decisions after I dry the picture completely. As I said, this picture have a little bit of fade in the blacks, and correction with the yellow actually works good and the picture looks more solid, more warm, and probably too much like a film photo, which I usually don't get from my Hasselblad. Maybe it's a good idea to make one more correction to find the balance between the yellow and green. But actually I really like the feel of this picture. I have a lot of sharpness, I have a good alignment on the frame, I have a good colors on the flowers and the greens. So let's go back and discuss what corrections I make. So I start with the wrong parameters and try to make different settings with the filter and recalibrate, and from there I just try to make different exposure and try to another test. So we get a better result after correction, but I still have a magenta cast. So I make a corrections on the magenta channel, select the proper one, and land on final setting with a little bit blue cast. So I correct it with the yellow channel with the -10 points. When I took a look on both of them, maybe it's a bit too green, but in my taste, green is better than blue. And as I said, the colors on the flowers looks good, so I will keep this picture like this and put it in my collection. So that's it for today, and thank you for watching.